Everyone is start heading towards their seats. We'll get started here in about a minute and a half. Let's go ahead and get this meeting started here at 6 o'clock. Appreciate everybody attending tonight. First, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And we'll begin with an invocation by Reverend Steve Ferris, from First Baptist of Destin.
Lord, we just come before you acknowledging you with all authority, the resurrected King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And Lord, as we celebrated the last Sunday, Lord, we just want to continue to do that. We thank you for blessing this nation far beyond any country in the world. And Lord, we understand that you hold us up. And Lord, we're grateful to these men and women who spend their time in this city on the local level. Lord, I pray that you would give them wisdom and knowledge. Put a hedge of protection around them. Lord, also our officers and all those in the military in this area that protect this nation. Lord, we pray for our schools. Your hand upon them to guide them, our teachers and all those of authority, Lord, that would be an example that you would be pleased with. We just thank you, give you all the honor and glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Mr. Marler?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start out with the agenda approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm going to offer a substitute motion. I know we got a lot of folks who are here tonight. I think it would probably be a very good accommodation to them because I know that the Gulf Power issue is going to gin up a long discussion. So to that end, I think I would prefer to have 6B moved up to after 2A. And
I'll second.
okay.
Before y'all move on that, item number 5 actually needs to get pulled too from the meeting. So.
Jeff, do we need a motion for that Separate.
That can be part of the agenda approval process, though. Pulling 5, it was not noticed.
Oh, no,
It should
okay.
be a public
So I
hearing.
guess 5A was not properly noticed, and so I will also include in my motion that 5A be continued until the next meeting.
Yes, sir, continued is fine, but it's not that it wasn't properly noticed. We're just going to change the process, and we're now going to notice both first and second reading as public hearings, rather than just second the way we have been doing it.
Fair enough. Sounds good.
Councilman Destin. Okay, we're going to 5, which is the comprehensive plans, because you're expecting the Gulf Power one to be longer than
No,
that.
6B is the comprehensive plan. 5A is being removed for notice
Well, you
purposes.
said 6B a minute ago.
And we're going to move 6B after 2A.
Okay.
So in other words, you just want it to, the comp plan to go first, and then the Gulf Power.
Yeah, and Gulf Power will come after, I think that's 4.
City manager.
Now, we have a
4C.
substitute amendment. We need to get a second. You want, Mr. Braden, you want to second that?
Well,
Oh, no, who seconded? You okay, the substitute?
so he seconded my substitute motion, which means if it's a substitute, it gets voted on first. So, and if it passes, then theirs is moot, if I remember Robert's rules right.
All right, we have an amendment to the motion. My screen's not on.
Technically, it's a substituted motion, Mr. Destin's motion.
You want to, there we go. You want to reread that substitute motion? Yeah.
So my substitute motion was that 6B be moved to after 2A, and that 5A be continued until the next meeting.
Any further discussion? All right, let's go ahead and vote. Good. Which button?
Here, take the other one and hit proceed to vote.
There we go. Gotta love technology. Here we go. Unanimous, ayes have it. All right, next thing we have on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
I'll
Approval.
make that motion, Mayor.
We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Let's go ahead and vote. There we go. Does not want to. There we go. Unanimous, ayes have it. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we have a proclamation for National Library Week, and I would ask for Mrs. Girardi Burns, our library director, to please come forward. National Library Week will be observed the week of April 8th through the 14th. Hello? Yep, there we go. So I got to read all the whereases. I said that fast. Whereas the librarians are leader in their institutions and organizations, in their committees in the nation and the world, and whereas librarians continue to lead the way in leveling the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies, and whereas libraries and librarians look beyond their traditional roles and provide transformative opportunities for education, employment, entrepreneurship and empowerment and engagement, as well as new services that connect closely with patrons and needs. And whereas libraries are pioneers supporting democracy and affecting social change, with a commitment to providing equitable access to information for all libraries users, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, and sexual orientations, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week, now, therefore, I, Gary Jarvis, Mayor of the City of Destin, do hereby proclaim April 8th through the 14th, 2018, as National Library Week. I encourage all Destin residents to visit the Destin Library this week and explore what is new at your library and engage with your librarian, because you and our library leaders, libraries transform. So done this second day of April, 2018.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
This,
It's on.
oh, that's right. Let's take a picture together. Money's a good one, too.
Item number 3 on our agenda will be public comments on agenda items that are not public hearings.
Actually, y'all moved the public hearing for 6.
Oh, that's right, we bumped it, didn't we?
Bumped it up, so, do you want me to read it, Mayor? Okay. Ordinance number 17-22-PC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending its Comprehensive Plan 2020, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for title, providing for jurisdiction, providing for intent, amending Chapter 1, Future Land Use Element, amending Chapter 2, Transportation Element, amending Chapter 12, Administration, and amending Chapter 13, Glossary, providing for transmittal to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, providing for incorporation into the Comprehensive Plan, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And this is the second reading of the comp plan. Do you
So,
want to
can
start
we
off?
entertain a motion? Oh, we're getting public comment first. So who's our first comment? Do we have any public comment? Ray, do you have anybody on the list?
It's a public hearing, sir. Just open a public hearing.
Would anyone like to speak?
And real quick, Mayor, before Mr. Matthews gets up here to speak, is anyone on behalf of staff going to be speaking on this?
Yes, we have Mr. Stuart Campbell here, as well as myself, to answer any questions. We also have Steve Schmidt if you need him, but hopefully we'll be able to answer anything.
Okay. And I guess then I'll just ask the question, is everything in the agenda packet accurate for tonight?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. Then I guess the public participation part of the hearing can start then. Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Chairman, Counsel Dana Matthews, a local lawyer. Would it be more appropriate so we could hear from staff's comments before we have an opportunity to speak? Because some of them may be resolved. I don't know what the staff's comments are going to be to the council. I know you will deliberate afterwards, but it would sure help me. I think maybe others that might be interested. I also know that there's been since it was first reading and sent to DEO and came back, there's been suggested language by Ms. Kopp that she shared with our office. We've gone back and forth for a while on a process for vesting, for a grandfather status. I mean, it's 4 pages long. I know it wasn't part of the ordinance that was adopted. It was my understanding it was going to be presented to council tonight for discussion purposes, and I don't know if it is. If I'd like confirmation. If that's true, then I would like to hear her presentation on that issue before I speak. It may save some time.
Is everyone good with that? Can we hear from staff?
Sure, absolutely. I'll just address the grandfather clause first, because it's actually incorporated into the ordinance that you are considering tonight. So the ordinance that you have tonight is the same exact ordinance that you had reviewed on first reading, except that the grandfather clause language has been modified. Basically, what the new grandfather clause language does is it creates a process where an applicant can request a vesting determination, and if the factors and criteria that are set forth in there are met, then staff will review the application package, make a recommendation to the city council, and the city council will be the body that makes the decision as to whether a vesting determination is issued. But other than that, everything in the ordinance is the same. I can answer specific questions. Just to go back through, the local planning agency reviewed the proposed amendments on December 20th. The recommendation at that time was for approval. It was a unanimous vote. The City Council held a public hearing on January 16th, 2018 for the first reading of the ordinance, and at that time, a motion was made to approve it and send the ordinance to the State Department of Economic Opportunity. The State Department of Economic Opportunity returned the ordinance back to us at the city without any additional comments. So at this point, the procedure is that you would review the ordinance. You may vote for or against adoption. If you vote to adopt the ordinance, it will go to the state again. They will make a completeness determination within 5 days, and then they'll make a compliance determination within 30 days. The ordinance is not effective until after the state issues a determination and the appeal period passes for any objections. If an objection is made, it would remain not in effect until the resolution of the objection, until a final determination is issued.
Can I clarify a point, Mayor? Now, they could approve of the version of the comp plan how it was on first reading that they approved of too tonight, correct? Without the new grandfathering language, they could.
The City Council, yes.
So they could move to approve either the version that's being presented tonight with the new grandfathering language, or
just strike it.
Or strike
and we would just send
changes.
it without it.
The question I have, if you don't mind, is, so if they approve this, or whatever we approve tonight, most likely it'll be at least 30 days before the comp plan goes into effect, unless there's objections or legal proceedings. What's the protocol there, and how long could that take?
It's hard to say how long that could take. It could vary a lot, depending on the objections themselves and the process that's utilized. The statute has various options. It can go through the Administration Commission, can go through mediations. So I can't say how long it would take, but it could remain not in effect for, months.
Anybody have any further questions? Mr. Matthews, would you like to? Did that help?
A little bit. I'm not going to address all the provisions in the comp plan, try to re-argue with you what we argued over the last 6 months, try to change your mind on height and where you measure height from and all that, because I think it would fall on deaf ears, to be quite frank. But I really want to talk about the grandfather, because that was something that there is language in the ordinance that was passed that deals with the grandfather clause. This is policy 1-2.1.5. It's called grandfather clause. Very brief. If you've compared it and read what Ms. Kopp has drafted compared to what was there, obviously it's a lot more comprehensive. When Ms. Kopp says that the grandfather clause language that she's added for your consideration tonight with the old comp plan changes is adding a procedure for a vested rights determination. That is true. That is one thing that the proposed language does, but there are other things that it does. And if you have not read this, I think it's very important for you to read it, because to understand that there's a lot going on in this 4 pages dealing with grandfather clause. One thing, and what it intends to do is cover 3 different situations. At least that's what it appears to me. And this is at the very beginning where she adds land uses, building heights, density, and/or intensity, which are A, are actual present and which lawfully existed prior to the effective date of the adopted comp plan, or B, were authorized pursuant to development order, which development order remained unexpired as of the effective day of the comprehensive plan, or C, have received a vesting determination by the City Council pursuant to the procedure herein, shall continue to be legal, building heights, density, and/or intensity as applicable after the adoption of the comp plan. So let's just start with that. So we're dealing with ostensibly 3 different categories of properties in different states that would be grandfathered in. Ostensibly, A and B, through no act by the City Council, no further ratification or approval. It's just there. Doesn't say that, but that's what it appears to read, and I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding when you adopt this. The third one is just a separate procedure that she's laid out. If I can just point some language to you. For instance, she starts out with land uses, building heights, density, and intensity, but then when she gets to the end, it just says legal, building heights, density, and intensity. So land uses, those 2 words are left out. Maybe it's a typo. I don't think it was done intentionally, but it's some cleanup language that I think should be in there.
Land use is in there, just to clarify.
Okay, all right, so that got added.
It was already in there, so it didn't need to be.
Not on the version that I've got. I'm talking about right where it says shall continue to be legal.
Okay. Okay, I see where you're talking about. It's not there.
And then, again, under B, it says we're authorized pursuant to a development order, which development order remained unexpired as of the effective date of the comp plan. What about development agreements? You have some development agreements. I represent a client that has a development agreement. It's over shells with the city. It's not expired, but that's not included as a quote-unquote automatic vesting. I think it should be. I have another client that has an annexation agreement with the city when they annexed in the property behind the old First Florida Bank building, not First Florida, bank out of, over there by, past, near Fuddpuckers, that property back in there that Lowell Kelly used to own. They have an annexation agreement with vested rights that are written into the development agreement. We've been trying to get a written determination from the city that the city still acknowledges that annexation agreement in light of the comp plan, which would seek to limit the vesting that annexation agreement provided. And I think Ms. Lejeune and Ms. Kopp will be candid with you, Ms. Bryla, that we've been unable to get that because of, I don't know if we need the city council to make a determination, if this is going to fall into category C and now we got to go file for a vested rights determination. But it seems to me a written, recorded, quid pro quo, if you will, annexation agreement that is recorded in the public records would also be just as vested as a development order that was unexpired. But again, this document does not provide for that. And then it goes on to say, and this is in the old language, it says all duly approved and recorded lots, subdivision, and condominium plats of record which existed as legal lots, subdivision, and condominium plats of record prior to the adoption of this comp plan shall continue to be legal lots, subdivision, and condominium plats of record. That's fine, but what about other types of plats? We have other plats besides that. We have townhome plats, we have duplex plats, we have
Your time's up. Could you wrap everything up in another 30 seconds, or?
Nope. I mean, all I can tell you is that there's language in here, and always concerns me is good intent but unintended consequences. And I think that I absolutely applaud Ms. Kopp for trying to provide a process for those things that exist and those things that may be in this different category. I just think that the language needs to be worked on a little bit, and I think I think y'all need to understand the nuances better from somebody that does dirt work all the time and sees these things. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Does any council member have any questions for Mr. Matthews? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Matthews. Anyone else would like an opportunity to step to the podium? State your name and your address when you get here. Sorry about that. Everybody knew Dana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, Good to see y'all again, still here. I've been involved in this comp plan for 5 years. I've been to every meeting that we've had over the 5-year period. That's to include the Canaan study, and that's to include the Northwest Florida study. I've heard these arguments for so long that I can almost quote them verbatim. I'm not going to do that. What I want to do tonight is to say to these city councilmen that stepped up to the plate 4 years ago and 2 years ago, that we appreciate everything that you've done, and we're almost there, and I didn't wear my cowboy boots tonight. Thank you.
Is anybody else? And please state your name, even though I know who you are and where you live.
Thank you. Lee Moore, representing Howard Group. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Just wanted to state that for the Howard Group, that we support the version of the comp plan amendments that was approved at first reading. If there are changes that need to be looked at, it's probably best to do that down the road. We encourage you to pass this tonight. It's been, as Mr. Shelton said, a long time coming, a lot of hard work, and we feel that this comp plan amendment will lead to sustainable and responsible redevelopment and development in Destin going forward. It's critical to the city's future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ron Sanstead, 337 Calhoun, and I'd like to encourage you all to pass this plan tonight, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanstead. Carrie?
Carrie Harbarger. I'm at 413 Spring Lane. My son is at 412 Spring Lane, and my mother's at 309 Spring Lane. They're not investment properties. They're our homes. We have 4 generations on our street. We want to stay, and we're asking you to pass this comp plan. We know it needs work. We've got to pass it. We've got to get it under control. It's got to be at the citizens as well. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Carrie.
Hi, my name is Christian Myers. This is my first time talking to the council, so I just want to say I'm honored. Thank you for listening to me. There's been a lot of work put into this. I've been watching it. I'm really happy to hear about it. I'll be 30 in July. I hope to live here for another 50 years. I want my children to have a space here, have a place here. This comp plan will make sure that happens. Thank you all for all your work.
Thank you, Christian.
It's also my first time, so I'll learn. My name's Nikki Johnson. I live at 3710 First Street, and I'm also here just to support our city council and to support this vote. I've lived in Destin for 13 years now and made it my home, and I too want to see that the development continues to grow in the right way, in a sustainable way, and I think that this is the only way to do that.
Thank you, Nikki.
Hi, Retha Alexander, 415 Gulf Shore Drive. I, along with the previous speakers, would like to see this comp plan passed, specifically because it's not about not wanting to see development, it's about controlled and responsible development. So that when we drive through the city, we don't have to worry as much about, the increase in traffic that all these, so many more buildings would bring to the area. I also don't want to see the harbor built up like crazy. That has a lot of memories for me as a kid. That's where we hung out and ran around at and played at when we were kids. I know things have to change, but that's Destin's heritage, that harbor is. I don't want to see it changed. I don't want to see it built up with buildings. Thanks.
Thank you, Retha.
Hello, Council. My name is Matthew Sweetser, born and raised in Destin. I am here to show my support for the comprehensive plan being passed. All for growth in our town as long as it's done in the proper way. Just to show support. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Good evening. How y'all doing? I'm Gregory Marler. The great-grandfather was William T. Marler. He gave the name to Destin. And I'd like to do an impromptu show of hands. How many have seen The Wizard of Oz in the audience? Just raise your hand. I know more people have seen it than that. Come on. That's what I see up here with Mr. Matthews, trying to control everybody up here and everything in Destin.
Sir, I'm just going to ask you, hold on one second. Okay. Address all your comments to the council members and
That's fine.
myself.
I was just asking for a
and
vote.
nobody else.
That's fine.
Okay, or I'm going to have to ask
Okay.
you to
That's
step down
fine.
from the podium, okay? Just share us,
when
we're interested in your story. Thank you.
We were, all of us voted to be a city to get away from the county of the unbridled growth that we've let happen in Destin. And what has happened is the reverse. We've had carpetbaggers and scallywags come in here and take it over. And we need to get it back. So you need to do the right thing up here and get some testicle fortitude, and pass this and get the growth down. The crickets you're going to hear are all of them going out to the east because you're going to have so much here, they're not going to want to be here. It's crazy. And y'all all know it. When you have a bag, you can't put more than 10 pounds in a 10-pound bag. It busts at the seam. And that's what we have. And you all know it. I can make all the money in the world, but the Lord made one Destin for us to preserve and keep and let other generations enjoy. And it's got away from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marler.
Still on. My name's Patty Turjak. I'm at 810 Spanish Moss Trail. I've lived in Destin for 30 years and love Destin, and I just want you all to know that I support you 100% in what you decide to do tonight, and hopefully it is to go with the comp plan as you have it written.
Thank you, Patty. Anyone else like to come to the podium and address the council? Seeing no further comments.
Yeah, the public portion of the hearings can complete, then Mayor, and now the council can deliberate.
Do we want to make a motion?
I move the City Council adopt Ordinance 17-22-PC on second reading and direct staff to forward the ordinance to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity and reviewing agencies pursuant to Florida statutes.
Second.
I'm going to offer a substitute motion. I have some very deep-seated concerns about the addition of this grandfathering language. While I don't share the exact same concerns as Mr. Matthews does, I'm concerned that the language that we've it expands the general rights of folks who would have grandfathering arguments to a place where I think we'd be ending up letting in a lot more than what we have anticipated. So I'm going to offer the substitute motion that we adopt the comp plan as submitted on first reading, which would strike the new addition of the grandfathering language.
Ms. Ramswell, would you like to comment?
No, I'm going to
Mr. Oberdier. I'm sticking with Skip from now on.
At the risk of being mugged when I walk out of here, I'm going to, and I'm kind of late to the dance, and I will tell you that I've only been here for 2 weeks now, so I wasn't in for the last 4 years like some of y'all have been, and not for the last 2 years like some of y'all have been. And all I'm going to say about the comp plan is, in my view, a comp plan is not to have all the specificity that this comp plan has. It's got too many details, it's got too many nuts and bolts in it that ought to be in the land development code. And I'm not saying I don't want anybody to leave in here tonight and go home and tell all your friends and neighbors that Skip Overdeer is for unbridled development here in Destin, because I am not, okay? Until we get the traffic fixed, until we get the parking fixed, until we get the transportation fixed, we can't have any more development. If one more person steps on this landmass that we call Destin, this place is going to sink. And I agree with that. But what I would tell you is the comp plan as it's written, I don't agree with that, because I don't think that's what should be in the comp plan. The comp plan should be a vision. It should be kind of an overreaching and overarching document that then dictates what goes into the land development code and how you can do the land development code. And the land development code is what limits you as to where you can build and how high you can build and where you can build and what kind of document or what kind of buildings and places you can build. And that's what I would be more for. And I know that, like I said, I'm kind of late to the dance. I haven't been here for the last 4 years or the last 2 years, but that's my feeling, and I would vote no for this.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't care how long we work on this comp plan, you ain't never gonna make everybody happy. We had a lot of input from the community on it, and this is what they wanted. My opinion about...
Hold on, Rodney, we're not playing by the rules. He made an amendment to the motion, and the substitute motion, I didn't get a second for the substitute motion, then we'll go into discussion. So can I get a second for the substitute motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. Sorry about that, Mr. Braden.
Okay.
You got the floor now without interruption.
My personal thoughts on putting more of the grandfather clause or adding to it is no more than just building more of a loophole into this comp plan that everybody's worked so hard on. It's just a last-ditch effort to find another way to get around the whole thing that everybody's worked on so hard. So I'm not in favor of changing anything. I want to keep it just like it was, like we passed it the first time, without adding any more language to the grandfather clause. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Does anyone, I don't see anyone else that want to, you want to make a comment? Ms. Ramswell, you have the floor.
This is a question for staff. Is it my understanding that the comp plan came back from the state with no objections whatsoever?
That's correct.
That's pretty outstanding and unusual, isn't it?
Sometimes, yeah.
I think that's impressive.
Well, without getting through, it is somewhat unusual, yes.
I think that's a testament to all the hard work that so many different people and groups have put into this, and I for one, am thrilled to move forward with this. And with the grandfather clause, I'm in favor of going ahead and including it at this time. I think it serves a very real and very necessary purpose. As I believe it was Mr. Braden said, that we can always make tweaks to any part of the comp plan. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So if there were issues that needed to be addressed or something that the other council or whoever felt needed to be addressed at a later time, we could certainly do that, correct?
Yes, you would just go through the same process.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Marler?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Skip. It needs to be in the LDC, not the way we're doing it, but several issues have been brought up in emails and things. Traffic. Traffic is not going to get any better even if we pass this plan tonight, because it's through traffic that we have problems with as much as we have problems with what's already developed here. We have a lot of through traffic. The state can put as many lanes as they can out there, and I guarantee you they'll still be filled up. We've been discovered. We're a resort community where there are a lot of people don't like that idea. The only basic things that bother me about the comp plan is the possibility of the lawsuits that we may get through the Burt Harris Act, and I don't want to bankrupt the city any more than we've already had enough fun with topless bars and a lot of other things. I don't want to see us spending any more taxpayer dollars trying to fight courts. The basic thing is that the cat got out of the bag long before we became a city, when the county was just allowing things to be that way. I don't think changing the comp plan is going to make that much difference, because we are already pretty much built out, but what's left, I don't want to see us in a lot of lawsuits. I guess that's my major problem. And taxes is the other thing. One of the reasons that we have such a low tax base in the city of Destin is because of all the wonderful buildings that we have here that pay a lot of taxes that we don't have to pay. I don't want to see our tax dollars going up either. But my opinion has always been the same. I just don't believe the way the comp plan is written is fair to everybody. I would rather see it be fair to everybody, so I'll be voting no.
Mayor, real quick, I was supposed to, at the start of this hearing, I'd met with Mr. Dixon earlier, and he had a conflict before for last year that resolved itself about a month and a half ago, and so he's not required to give the details of the conflict since it no longer exists, but he will be able to vote tonight. So.
Good deal. I don't see any further. Well, we do have another person that wants to speak. Mr. Morgan.
I'll support Mr. Destin's substitute motion on the basis of hearing Mr. Matthews' concerns further and Mr. Destin's concerns about the grandfather clause. I'd like to discuss that at a separate meeting.
Well, I get to speak last before we take this to a vote, and I am. When I was running for mayor, and since I've been sworn in as mayor, I've tried to be a quick study. This is a very complex issue, a lot of history behind it, a lot of influence behind it. And so I just want to go on public record just to bring up a couple issues that haven't been talked about, pro or con. And I'm not going to get to vote in it anyways. So this is just for y'all's edification and the council's. About my personal concern is the comp plan is approved by the state, and any changes to it, if there's any mistakes or unintended consequences, we're going to have to go back through the state, and we're going to have to rely on the state legislators to make the changes. And so I know this council's been real sensitive to wanting to support home rule, and part of that home rule is addressing the needs of the citizens and this community, with home rule. A comp plan is supposed to be visionary, broad, with an eye towards the future. But the community and the council should have the flexibility, and I would think they would want the control of addressing a certain half-mile area or a small community using the land development codes and ordinances, and not have to go back to the state or rely on the state to dictate. Another thing that was brought up was litigation, Burt Harris, which is a law that the state passed. And it allows people that feel like if a comp plan or rule regulation inhibits or diminishes the value, that they could sue that government entity. And so one of the things that takes place, we've got insurance to cover most of that, but one of the things that takes place in a Burt Harris lawsuit is no matter who wins or loses, each party has to pay the price. But more importantly, when it comes to home rule, if a developer wins a Burt Harris lawsuit, that development will now be done under a court order. And the city and even the state will have no say in the matter. And I don't know if I would want to put this city in a position that the attempt in this more restrictive comp plan is to restrain development and do it in a good manner. And then you take the risk by approving this restrictive comp plan and not relying on your ability for code enforcement, land development codes, or parking ordinances, that kind of stuff. And you're opening up a judge to take a look to the west and say, well, there's 15 stories over there, and look to the east and say there's 13 stories over here, so this guy, he only wants 12. And so all of a sudden we've got a development on the harbor that we don't need at a judge's orders, and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's the only thing that I would recommend is just that thought process, and mitigate yourself and the risk involved of having a judge court-ordered development. And it could go beyond just the harbor that I'm talking about. It could be the anywhere else in this city. So those are the things that haven't been talked about. I think the intent of the citizens was pretty clear in their public testimony. They don't want a whole bunch of growth, especially on the harbor, and I get that. But all I'm asking this council is consider whether you want to do it with a comp plan administered by the state, or would you rather do it with this body that's sitting right here that knows the will of the people, because the people elect this council, and this council serves the people. And I just think that there's a better way to administer the needs of this community through home rule versus state rule. And that's my only comment. Thank you. Anyone have any further things they'd like to add?
Can we restate the motion, please?
Sure, my motion was to adopt the comp plan as submitted to the state on first reading, which would in effect strike all of the new additional language in the grandfathering clause.
Thank you.
It would include the grandfathering clause that was sent to the state, though.
Correct.
And that's the secondary motion as opposed to the first, or did you, yeah.
Yes, that's secondary motion. We had a second. We just had that discussion on that, and now we're going to take it to a vote. No further discussion?
Yeah, you would consider Councilmember Destin's motion first.
Yes. Guys, cast your votes. The vote goes 5 yes, 2 nays. Motion carries. I'm going to really politely ask folks to refrain from any comments from the gallery. There's 2 opportunities to speak publicly here. One of them's already passed. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting. We got a lot on the plate, and I just ask for people to be orderly tonight and respectful, regardless of people's opinion.
Mayor Jarvis, actually, they kind of confused everything tonight by moving the public hearing above 3A. Now actually would be the time for the blue card public comments, if anyone wants to make those now. So.
I don't believe we have any tonight. All right, so Parker scrambled up my paper agenda up here. So now we're at 4A. Now, Tuffy, you told me you could go a little longer. All right, so appointments of members to citizen volunteer committees and boards. And I guess after every time we have an election and a change of council members, that reappointment to these different boards and committee is done. So I guess we'll just start from the paper that we have, starting with the Board of Adjustments. And what we'll do is Council Member Ramswell, Braden, and Skip will each make recommendations to fill their committee positions. Do you want to go ahead? We'll just start with you, Mr. Braden.
Yeah, I'll be fine. I've spoke with Tom, and he wants his position back, so I'm going to nominate Tom Weidenhammer for the Board of Adjustments.
Ms. Ramswell.
I would like to nominate Kimberly Van Dam to the Board of Adjustments.
And Skip.
Yeah, I'll nominate Dean Critch to the Board of Adjustment.
All right, we got a second to those appointments, and just vote. All right. I just got to push the button. Are you sure this works by electricity? It's unanimous. That's our new Board of Adjustments. Ordinance 18-03-CC, which was adopted in February 2018, sunsetted this committee and created two separate committees. It used to be Environmental Parks and Rec and Tree Board Super Committee. So now we have separate committees, and this one we're considering is Parks and Recreation Committee. So actually we have 3 people who submitted reappointments and 3 other people, new applicants. So we'll just start from Mr. Braden and work this way. If you guys would like to make nominations, and then we'll bring it to a vote.
I'll nominate Matthew Sweetser.
Ramswell.
I'm going to pass at this moment because I think the others are spoken for, and I don't want to steal someone's pick, so to speak.
Don't have a rabbit in the hat. All right, Tuffy?
I don't have a pick right now.
Skip.
Okay, yeah, I talked to Karen Parrish, and so I'll nominate Karen Parrish to the Environmental Parks and Recreation Committee.
Mr. Marlar.
I'll put Allison Johnson.
Mr. Parker. Mr. Destin.
I don't have anybody right now.
Mr. Morgan.
Myra, were you an applicant? Okay. Sure. I'll nominate Myra Williams.
You did not give the right answer, Myra.
We need you.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Dixon.
I was on the wrong sheet. I do have one. It is Dot Jones.
Okay. Anyone else? Any volunteers out in the audience? Would someone, I saw a hand. Would someone like to, please raise your hand again, ma'am. Oh, yeah, you're on there, Miss Abear.
Parker's supposed to be there. Does she need me to Yes. Is Abear on there, or does she?
Yeah, she's on there. Yes, go ahead and nominate her.
Okay, Ms. Abear, you get to be my pick.
Anyone else? That's all hopefully we can fill the rest of this panel at another time, so.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there is another person, Mark Nakel, if you want to consider him. He was Mr. Foreman's nominee.
I'll nominate him. Can I do that? No.
I can name, I'll nominate him. I thought Mr. Overdeer was taking him,
No,
that's why I didn't.
I took Karen Parrish.
Okay, then I will nominate Mark Nicole.
There we go, folks. Let's vote. We got a second and a nomination by Mr. Morgan. It's unanimous, so moved. Next one is the City Tree Commission. Right now on my little piece of paper, I have 2 applicants. Our previous volunteer, Myra Williams and Aubrey Santucci. And I don't, and then I guess it'll be up to some of y'all to come up with some other names if you've spoken with anyone. Go ahead, Mr. Braden.
Well, actually, Mayor, the way this one's worded, it says 8 members appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. So currently how it's worded, you would pick all 8 and they would just confirm them unless everyone wants to make their own nomination. So just
Well, if I start picking people's names out, people start throwing rocks at me. So I'll nominate Aubrey Santucci and Myra Williams to start and see if I... And we have a second? Does anyone want to take a bite at that apple, other than these two brave souls? Yeah, well, I believe Ms. Santucci's an arborist, correct? Yes. And you can, you actually can make up a couple different slots. I'll fill out the rest of it at some point soon.
I'd recommend that maybe come back to another meeting with that board. In the next meeting, you can meet with Ms. Williams and kind of come up with a plan for it.
Sounds good to me. Let's go ahead and vote on the two nominations that we have. All right, go ahead and vote, folks. Unanimous. We have 2 members of our 8-person thing, and I'll find some more lovely volunteers. Next will be Harbor and Waterways Board. And we'll just start at one end and work our way down.
I have nothing.
I'd like to reappoint Guy Tadlock.
Mr. Dixon?
Actually, there's only 3 vacancies on this.
Okay.
Ms. Ramswell, Mr. Skip Overdyer, and Rodney. And so there's just Councilmember Overdyer needs to make his.
So I would take Richard Hoey if Foreman had nominated him before. I'll renominate him if he's reapplied.
And we can just fill that other position at a later date? Let's just have, yeah, there we go. I think the Energizer Bunny's getting weak in these things. Ayes have it, so moved. Next is a Harbor Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Committee. And we have just 3 nominations here as well.
Correct. For most of the rest of these boards, it's going to be the 3 folks who are up for re-election in the last cycle.
Mr. Braden.
Nominate Mike Rame.
Ms. Ramswell.
Casey Jones.
Mr. Oberdauer. There we go. Cast your votes. Ayes have it, so moved. All right, the next one's local planning agency. Major focus, act as advisory capacity to the city council on matters relating to the comp plan, land development code amendments, rezoning, and vacation rights of way and easements. We have 3 positions for nomination. Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to nominate Kim Van Dam.
Ms. Ramswell.
I will reappoint Daryl Shelton.
And Mr. Oberdauer.
I'll do Donald David.
So we have 3 nominations. We got a second. Somebody? Okay. Ayes have it, so moved. Next one on the list is Public Works and Safety. And we have 3 nominations. Mr. Braden.
I'm going to nominate Tom Weidenhammer.
I will nominate Stephen Minchell.
Skip.
I'll nominate Mike Parker.
We got 3 nominations. Let's vote.
Got it.
Ayes have it, so moved. Apologize, everyone, for the delay here. Next one is Town Center Community Redevelopment Agency Advisory Committee. And we have 3 vacancies. And 2 applicants. Skip, do you have somebody you'd like to
I
nominate?
talked to Jim Foreman this afternoon, so I'll nominate Jim Foreman.
Yes.
I will nominate Retha Alexander.
Mr. Braden?
I have no one at this time.
Anyone else like to sit on that? Well, right now, we're just going to go ahead and take this to a vote, and we'll try to fill that position through begging and pleading with people. Ayes have it, so moved. And so now we have item 4C, City of Destin Gulf Power Franchise Agreement discussion.
Actually, 4B, Mayor.
4B? Okay. Appointment of city council representatives to local regional committees. That's a fairly extensive list. How many does Skip want is basically what we're looking at.
I'll take economic development. I'll take the Northwest Florida Regional TPO. I'll take the Okaloosa-Walton TPO. I'll take the Okaloosa County Public Transit Cooperative. I already talked to Robert Burks-Dresser about that. I'll take the TDC. And I'll take the West Florida Regional Planning Council.
Skip, if I may?
Yes.
I wasn't able, of course, we can't talk outside the meetings, but I had,
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, could you do something? I can't. It's too loud outside here.
you get them?
If a shh doesn't work next time, take this with you.
Yeah, there you go.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Mr. Destin.
Can I ask a point of clarification? Is that, so are these positions all vacated by Mr. Foreman, or are these positions that we all feel that we need to disperse amongst all of us?
They have to get reappointed every 2 years.
Okay, so different, these weren't all held by Mr. Foreman?
No, if you turn the page, it actually has it, who the previous holders of the positions were. The previous mayor and you, Ms. Ramswell, held some of them, and for the most part, it was the three of y'all, including Mr. Foreman, holding all of them. So.
Thanks for clarifying.
Basically, we're just giving the pick of the litter to Mr. over here if he wants them all.
Yeah.
He made that clear in his speech last week.
Regarding only one of those, I couldn't talk to you outside of the meeting, so I have to talk to you inside the meeting. The TDC appointment was a position that I wanted to take, being in the tourism industry and doing my best to try to perhaps extend an olive branch over to the TDC so we can have a better relationship with, or an increase, because I'm not saying that Jim Foreman did a bad job, actually did a fantastic job, but I've didn't want to step on Jim's toes until Jim was gone. So I'll relinquish my position on the TPO and open it up for you if you'd like to do that.
In all honesty, I mean, I'd rather be on the TDC than the TPO. So, and I've talked to the TDC director, I've talked to several of the members, the chairman, and some other folks on the TDC, and I realize, you know, I mean, I've got a background in with the chamber and some of the other entities that are involved with the TDC. So, I mean, it's up. You tell me how you want to do it. I'm just saying that I would like to be on the TDC.
Mayor, point of order.
However that works, why?
Aren't these positions supposed to be nominated by someone? We don't.
You can nominate yourself, too.
Well, why don't we, I mean, we started it with Skip just going down the list of things he wanted, and I've expressed that I think I'd be interested as well. And we're going to have to go item by item, at which point somebody's going to have to nominate somebody else, and we'll just have to take votes on them, which I don't think there's going to be any controversy other than the TDC appointment, so.
Yeah, I just
mean,
thought
we'll go
that
down
was the
list.
rule, that we had to, the person had to be nominated.
Right, and I think we're going to do that in just a minute once, I think Skip's done with his list.
Isn't that, in the TDC, a primary and an alternate?
Well, there wasn't.
Yeah.
There wasn't, no. But it could be.
That solves the problem.
Do we know if there's
Mayor?
One is a primary and one is an alternate.
Yes.
The TDC only allows one primary member, right. The alternate can attend but cannot vote.
Yeah, so we'll just go with a primary once we figure out who that is. Everyone, all these other ones.
Anybody gonna take a card?
So, Mr. Braden, seeing how do you want to nominate yourself for any of the ones that you're not on?
No, it just seemed like we wasn't following the same, procedure that we followed in the past.
It might make sense to go one at a time, just to kind of speed it up, just go one position, and y'all can nominate someone. And it looks like Skip's nominated himself for the first one, and y'all need to do an alternate too, and just approve it.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And do you want to just go, do we need to vote on all of them, or?
You could vote on them all at the end, but since there's some controversy, at least on one of the positions, I'd do one at a time. So.
Man, that machine is so slow. Can we do it by voice vote? Okay, well, on this particular one, folks, I think to speed up this process, we'll do it by voice vote. Is council members okay with that? All right, so the first one will be Economic Development Council Policy Board. Primary was Mr. Scott Fisher, and the alternate was Council Member Ramswell. And Skip, you nominated yourself for that? Ms. Ramswell?
Yes, please.
Okay. So all in favor, do you want to be the alternate? Stay where you're at?
Yes.
All in favor of Mr. Obadiah as the primary and Ms. Ramswell as the alternate? Aye. Any dissension? None. Ayes carry. Second one, Northwest Florida League of Cities. The primary was Councilmember Ramswell, and the alternate was Councilmember Destin.
I'd like to do that again, please.
I'm happy to be an alternate.
I'll second both of those.
Okay, we got a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. So moved. Next one is, let's see, Northwest Florida Military Sustainability Partnership. The primary was Councilmember Foreman, so and is that the one, nobody volunteered for that one, right? Nobody asked to be on that?
I don't mind nominating myself for that. It kind of looks like it's a non-starter, but yeah, you can put me on there.
I'll spare everybody, and I'll just do that one. All right, Skip? And Ms. Ramswell, you be the alternate?
Okay, that's
I'll
fine.
second that.
All in favor? All opposed? So moved. Northwest Florida Regional TPO. We had Mr. Obadiah asked to be the primary. Alternate was Mr. Destin. Is everybody good with that?
I'll second.
We got a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, so moved.
I'll take, on the Okaloosa-Walton TPO, I'll take Mr. Destin's position. I'm an alternate currently.
Okay, and we had, the primary was Mr. Obadiah?
There's two on this, and Foreman's one, and Parker's the other, so there's two primaries and two alternates.
Oh, there's two. I got you. So we have,
Was there a reason why there was two?
We get two votes.
would someone else like to be a primary besides Mr. Obadiah?
I will.
Mr. Morgan has nominated himself for an alternate. We had Mr. Dixon.
I'll be an alternate, I won't be a primary.
Okay.
I'll be
More alternate.
I can be an alternate.
And Mr. Destin will be the alternate. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I have a question about process. Who's making the motions on these? I mean, I know we're asking for a second, but I haven't heard a first, and the mayor can't make a motion, can he?
No, I didn't, nope.
No, the mayor cannot make a motion, so I guess technically if someone on that one wants to nominate.
I don't care, but if we're not following the proper procedure, I don't want something to come back.
So moved.
So moved. I think in the past, everybody got the nominations and one motion was made, 1 second was made, and it was done all at one time. We had,
For the remainder, Mayor, I think probably I'll be happy to start making primary motions just so we can make sure that we're crossing our Ts and dotting our Is.
Mayor, if I may, since everyone seems to be volunteering, I can always assume that they're nominating themselves. And then we have a second at the end.
that's why you're the clerk of courts. All right, Okaloosa County League of Cities. The primary was Mr. Fisher. I cannot make a motion, but I can nominate myself, correct?
I'll nominate you.
Okay, Mr. Destin nominates me, and the alternate would be Ms. Ramswell.
Yeah.
We have a second. All in favor? All opposed? So moved. Okaloosa County Public Library Cooperative. Mr. Braden has volunteered to be the primary, and Mr. Marlar will stay the alternate.
So moved.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Okaloosa County Public Transportation Cooperative. I think Mr. Obadiah nominated himself for that. The alternate was Mr. Braden. And he nominated himself for that.
So moved.
So we have motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Tourist Development Council, TDC. We have two people that would like to be the primary in voting position, so...
I'll nominate Parker Destin.
So we have a nomination to make Parker Destin the primary?
And the reason being is Parker's on the front lines of tourism, like you are, Mayor. He deals with it every day, nothing against you, Skip. I just think that's important to bring that perspective to the table.
Okay, and we have a second from Mr. Braden. Any further discussion?
You can still have an alternate, right? Even though they can't.
No.
Mayor, you might want to do
We'll do that. Get your little machines out. Ayes have it. So moved. Congratulations. Next is Walton, Okaloosa, Santa Rosa Regional Authority, RUA. Primary was Mr. Foreman, so we need a nomination for that, and the alternate was Mr. Braden. Mr. Braden, you still want to remain? Okay.
I'll nominate Tuffy Dixon.
I'm going to have to deny that nomination.
Not into it, I'm sorry.
Do we have a nomination from the floor for Okaloosa Santa Rosa Regional Utility Authority?
I'll
nominate
nominate Preble
you.
Ramswell.
I would decline, but I'd like to nominate the mayor.
I'll second.
All in favor? Any opposed? So moved. Trying to be quiet over here. Keep a low profile. West Florida Regional Planning Council, RPC. We need a nomination from there. The alternate was Mr. Morgan.
I'll do it if no one.
I'll nominate Skip. He wanted that one, too.
Skip.
Yeah, Skip volunteered for that one.
Okay, that was the last one that Skip volunteered for.
I'll second.
Then we have a second, and then Mr. Morgan will be the alternate. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it, so moved. And on this last one, seeing how there's no BRAC, do we need to address that or just? Okay, so we got Mr. Braden will be the primary. Does someone want to step up the plate?
I'll do alternate.
And Ms. Ramswell will be the alternate. All in favor? Aye. So moved. All right. Yeah, let's take a 5-minute break right now. This will be a good time. And then we'll get back at it at 20 minutes after. Could I ask everyone to kind of quickly get back to their seats?
Parker, Destin, to the principal's office.
Thought it was to the courtesy white phone.
Sorry, we're supposed to be in the boys' room.
I know I voted no.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and bring this meeting back to order. We're in item 4, city manager's report. Item number C, Miss City Manager, would you like to begin this discussion?
Yes, Mayor, thank you very much. So with the Gulf Power franchise agreement discussions, Mr. Sheffright, along with Mr. Jeff Burns, myself, and former Mayor Fisher, had put together a franchise agreement counter proposal to Gulf Power's original proposal. And then on February 16th, we received a letter in response back addressing the matters of importance to the City Council. Gulf Power did deny an extension. We had asked for a 1-year extension. They did deny that, stating it was premature to the expiration date. And then they also denied our proposal to unilaterally reduce customer rates and to commit to undergrounding the entire distribution system for fixed fees. There were other matters of importance to the council that they did say that they would welcome additional discussion and in some cases clarification, supporting the extent for renewable energy and sustainability measures. They agreed to provide a non-binding cost estimate to underground the distribution system. They committed to providing a binding engineering grade cost estimate for a 2-mile section along Highway 98. And then they also discussed in a letter to Mayor Fisher, former Mayor Fisher, January 10th, their willingness to discuss and review various other options such as LED lighting at some of our facilities, beautification plans, and that they are not conceptually opposed to working with the city to develop plans and agreements to utilize our right-of-way, and that they are not opposed to further discussion of purchase option as well. So given that we are now at this point, the City Council should determine where we want to go, and there's many options, and that's what the council's been doing all this time, is exploring all of the options that are open to them. You could make a motion to go back and try to negotiate one final time. In the recommended motion, I mentioned an agreement with a 15-year term, purchase option, and franchise fee up to 6% with a mutually agreeable additional accommodations, as were previously discussed in other correspondence. That 15-year is totally up to the council's discretion. I picked that number because it happens to be what Fort Walton Beach is currently negotiating at this point as well. But the council has the option to determine any term and any length of time for vesting for purchase option, and then we could take that back to the negotiation table and bring something back to City Council for review, hopefully by May 7th. You also have the ability to direct myself and the attorneys to bring back an agenda item if you wish to vote to exercise the current franchise agreement purchase option, or if the council wants to take no action at this time, allow the current franchise agreement to expire, the citizens of Destin will still be receiving the same level of service, and we would still receive our franchise fees. However, we would have no ability to continue with any other mutually agreeable accommodations at that point. We would just be existing without the franchise fee. So at this point, Mayor, if the council wants to have discussion, I just urge the council that, being that it's going to expire by May 19th, that the council make some sort of decision and direction for staff to move forward.
All right, well, we have a recommended motion attached to this report by the city manager. Mr. Destin, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. I think I might end up volunteering myself for this. I've sort of been on the sideline for the last 2 years, other than just occasionally commenting during this negotiation process as just a member of council. But I did a couple of these franchise negotiations in my previous life as an attorney on behalf of Okaloosa Gas District, and then I was on the other side, and when I represented Town of Cinco Bayou. If it pleases the council, I'd like the opportunity to sit down with Gulf Power over the next 2 weeks and see if we can cobble together something that is agreeable to both parties. I do understand from sunshine purposes that would mean the mayor would have to step aside, but if
Is that a motion?
well, I'm thinking out loud, but I think I'll end up giving it as a much more concise motion here in a moment. But I think I'm going to have to do my best to step into the breach. Otherwise, you know, after all that we've been through in the last 2 years, and then it culminating with this election and the smear campaign and the money that's been spent out of Washington to try to change the makeup of this council, you know, I have some concerns that we're going to rush into exercising the option. I know that May 19th is a deadline, and I do understand from a legal perspective, under no circumstances would I allow that to expire, because that would open up a very good legal argument that we have let it lapse. And that is the only protection the city of Destin has from our utility provider, which is a strange way to characterize that, but from a legal standpoint, it is the case. So I'm going to make the motion that Mayor, go ahead if you'd like.
Yeah, what I'd like to do is maybe get someone to take the recommended motion, get a second, and then you can make an amendment to that motion. Would that work for you? Or would you rather?
It's up to everyone. I would ask any motion that y'all make, since the council did give me the negotiation authority last year, I'd like to relinquish that back to the council, and then that way I can act as more of an attorney and an advisor as opposed to the primary negotiator, if you include that too.
Sure.
You got the floor, Mr. Destin. Go ahead.
Sure. Rather than doing it as a substitute motion, I could just do it as a primary. I'm going to move that I be appointed as primary negotiator in the franchise negotiations with Gulf Power. I also include that Mr. Burns be relinquished as a primary, and that Ms. Lejeune, Mr. Burns, and our attorney Chef Wright continue open negotiations with Gulf Power regarding the extension of the franchise agreement.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second.
Actually, I'm going to have to I need to amend it. I would also include, to make a motion to direct the city manager and city attorney to bring back at the next city council meeting the necessary agenda item to exercise the current franchise agreement purchase option. I don't want to allow the next 2 weeks to delay anything. I don't want us going up against the wire on that as it expires in May.
As part of your primary motion, too, you want to become primary negotiator, too, correct?
Correct.
Just to clarify.
Yeah.
Can I get one clarification? Now, would Mr. Destin
Hold
vote for
on,
himself?
I want to get a clear motion in a second before we have any discussion first. And that was long.
That was long. I know there's a bunch of moving parts to it.
I seconded originally. Can you repeat the second part of that? Did
Sure.
you
The addition
Yeah.
is that we simultaneously, after I've been appointed to go negotiate with them, we're not delaying the implementation of whatever mechanism procedurally that we need to follow to be able to adequately and quickly and timely, most importantly, exercise the purchase option. So that, if you see under the alternate motion number 2, it is it directs the city attorney and the city manager to bring back at the next city council meeting the necessary agenda item to vote to exercise the current franchise agreement purchase option. The reason being, in my mind, is if negotiations completely fail between us, we wouldn't want to have lost 2 weeks' worth of necessary instruction from a procedure standpoint so that we can move, if it's the will of the council, on exercising the purchase option before it expires.
Second stands.
Okay. So, Ray, did you get that?
Just some clarification, sir.
Sure.
The alternate motion number 2, initially you included Chef Wright, right?
So I'm including alternate motion 2 to my primary motion, which is mostly cobbled together, which is I become the primary, Jeff relinquishes, he's basically going back to being a regular old attorney, and what I'm being instructed to do is to try to come back with a negotiated franchise agreement with Gulf Power, with the assistance, of course, of Jeff Burns, our city manager, and our special legal counsel, Mr. Chef Wright.
Okay.
You get all that? That's why I wish we could put these motions up on the screen so it's a little clearer for everyone. That was a long motion, by the way, Mr. Destin. Is that what attorneys do, though, right?
That's right, Bill.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
Okay, I just want a clarification on one thing.
But Mr. Overdeer is next, and
Okay, well, thank you for pronouncing my name right first. And second, let me just understand that this is a two-pronged approach that you're taking, that you're going to do negotiating with Gulf Power, and at the same time, the city manager and the city staff are going to come back to us in 2 weeks in case your negotiations fail.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, got it.
Point of clarification, just because we come back in 2 weeks with a proposed, it'll probably be a resolution exercising that option. Y'all don't have to vote on it in 2 weeks. The May 19th is the deadline for exercising the option, so that could be pushed over into May, the first meeting in May. If y'all, just because we come back with the format, that'll just be for your review at that time. So,
Mr. Dixon, you're next.
And I don't have a problem with what Mr. Destin is talking about. One of the things that I would want to think about, I kind of want to know, is that if we have a city council member that's going to need to vote on this thing, and during these negotiations that something doesn't go right, could they then come back and say, because of things that they experienced in this negotiation is the reason that they voted the way they did? Or is it one of those things where, because negotiating in bad faith could come into play if they don't, or if you don't agree with, the way things are playing out, or the power company doesn't agree. If you at that time vote no on something, could it then be thrown back at you that you were part of this negotiating team and that you actually have a vote in this?
For the legal counsel, I don't think there's a conflict in that regard, but I'll allow Jeff to expound on it if he feels.
no, there wouldn't be any legal conflict. The only conflict would arise if somehow like an economic benefit arose, and that's not going to happen in that situation.
All right, Mr. Marlar.
Jeff, since he's volunteering himself, is that the same? Would he be, I just want to know, does he vote for himself?
Yeah, he can nominate himself, kind of like the previous round of
Okay,
nominations.
I just want to make sure he's throwing himself into the fire there. Both.
And I have a question. Seeing how we get paid so much to do this job, what are you going to get paid to do this new job? How's that going to work?
Unfortunately, I think it's probably going to be zero, but that's okay.
Pro bono.
Probably characterized as pro bono.
All right, just want to make that clear to everyone. So we have a motion, and we have a second. And City Manager, you made a couple recommendations. Would you like to just make a final comment before we take this to vote?
No, sir. It's my job to bring all the facts forward to council, and then I act on your direction. So whatever the council wants.
Thank you, ma'am. I guess we'll just go ahead and take it to a vote unless anybody has anything else they'd like to add. Vote is 7-0. It's unanimous. So moved. Next on the item D, Gulf Power franchise fees audit. City Manager?
Yes, sir. This is purely a informational item. There is no motion needed at this time. When our staff had performed an informal routine audit of the city's franchise account data, staff had noticed a few anomalies with the addressing, and we then reported that to Gulf Power, basically recommending that they do their own internal audit for the addresses to make sure that they're all correct and up to date, because as you all are aware that our jurisdictional boundaries end, and then the unincorporated county begins. We have also a lot of enclaves and pockets within the city that are unincorporated county, yet everyone refers to themselves as living in the city of Destin. So because of that, there were numerous customers of Gulf Power that were billed our franchise fee, which should not have been billed, and then there were some customers inside of the city Destin limits that were not billed that should have been. And the difference between those two amounts came to $14,554.11. That was over-collected, and it was remitted to the city of Destin. We did receive those funds. Gulf Power is requesting an audit settlement agreement from the city where they would deduct that amount from future franchise fee remittances in an agreed-upon fashion. We did request additional documentation from Gulf Power, and when we receive that information, myself, the finance director, and the city attorney will bring that information back to council for discussion and direction. But this is just an informational item to let the council know that this has transpired, and this is where we are at this point in time.
I don't see any discussion there. Thank you very much. And then item E, under announcement. Well,
I have a concern, and I believe that we had brought this to Gulf Power's attention a year ago. Is that about accurate? and ask them to look into it?
Something like that. In the last year, it was probably 7 or 8 months ago, maybe.
Are you referring to this or to the lighting audit?
Well, the lighting audit was what, in 2015?
That was before I got here, so it was over 2 years ago.
Yeah, I guess the lighting audit was in 2015, and then this current, the franchise fee thing was last summer of 17?
Yes.
So my understanding is we actually provided, or we found the error and then brought it to their attention and also gave them the records showing the addresses that should be there.
GIS-shaped files, yes, ma'am.
And was that not done in 2015 as well, when the lighting audit was done?
It was, but our understanding is that that's a different division from the billing. I can't speak to Gulf Power's processes, but we did provide that information to them during the lighting audit.
So I guess my concern is, and I mean, I'd love to hear from Gulf Power if they'd like to speak on it, but if we've done everything in our power to ensure they're armed with the information that they should already have through the county property appraiser's office, I honestly don't feel like we should be responsible for the $14,000 mistake that, you know, they're saying that we should pay back. And I mean, I'd love to hear from you guys why you think that's the best route to go. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Bernard Johnson with Gulf Power. It's a good question. Councilman Ramsey, appreciate that. Yeah, it's probably been about last summer since that question was asked about that. And what happens is when customers come online with our system, an account is set up. So when you have those gray areas there between the county and the city properties, that's where some confusions kind of come in when it gets set up. So just because somebody lives right next door to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a city resident versus a county resident. So, but at the request of the city, we did go back and do that audit and verify what those addresses were, and that's what that number came up to be. So, but my concern is going forward, you know, how do you prevent this from happening? Rather than going back and checking it every month or, you know, every quarter or every 2 months or whatever the case may be, there needs to be a process identified that we can agree on to make sure that it doesn't, you know, be something that we can continue to talk about.
This may sound really naive, but when I move here, let's say I move in and I need to get power service, so I contact Gulf Power, and then y'all look up my address and go, oh yes, we do service you, well, you know, your deposits, blah, blah, blah. Isn't that part of the process of determining whether someone is actually City of Destin or not?
Well, if it was that cut and dry, it'd be nice. So we're, you know, matching our records with the city's records, with the shape file and all from the county, in hopes that it's right. So, you know, and I was talking with our folks on the inside just to say, okay, well, if that happens, you know, somebody makes an application for service to ensure that they are set up in the county versus being set up in the city, you know, what's the verifying factor to state that county or city? And that's what we need to determine the process going forward, just to see which is the right way to do it, so we're not, you know, getting further behind the 8 ball and looking at $14,000, $15,000 remittances.
So looking at this, I mean, y'all obviously have much deeper pockets than we do. And of course, we're all working together to move forward with our contract with you guys. It would seem like, I mean, $14,000 is a lot of money that we haven't budgeted for. And of course, I'm sure y'all haven't budgeted for that type of a loss either. But I wish there was some way we could work together on this because, you know, we've done everything we could to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, we did this again. This is not the first time this has happened. So it's happened before. And I have to go back and get that number for what that remittance was last time. But we did another correction, I want to say probably about 1.5 years ago. And it was something we did system-wide, not just City of Destin, City of Fort Walton Beach, all the city municipalities. We did a correction and did an audit overall. And there were some you know, waiving of amounts, if you would, that we didn't go back and collect on because it had been a certain amount of time that had passed on these. We went back, I think we might have went back 3 years, I'm not sure. I'll go back and do a little check on that. So it has been something that we have been in a position to be able to, waive is not necessarily the right word I'm looking for, but to where we have taken care of those amounts. But, we can discuss, but that's what it is for now. So we'll go back and
Yeah,
discuss it
I'd
some
love
more.
to have us directed to whomever might be
Yeah.
the person to talk to about that, because, if we've given information at 2 different times, the GIS, whatever that our city manager
Shape
referred
files,
to, and, y'all are on top of that too. It doesn't seem right that we'd have to eat that. And you may feel differently,
Yeah,
because
I mean,
obviously you're representing your company, and I'm representing our company, so to speak.
Well, and that's the thing is how do you prevent it from happening again? Because it's happened before, and this is not it's the second time that it's happened. So, so to that point, when you have a city and you have these enclaves and there, things like that happen. Human error, whatever the case may be, but having a more efficient process to ensure that if somebody's setting up an account in the city, that is documented as such, as likewise with the county.
Absolutely. Maybe that can be part of the discussion in terms of the amount, is also how do we work together to prevent this from happening again?
By all means. By all means.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Braden, while we have Mr. Johnson over
Thank you,
here.
Mayor. So part of that, if I understood correctly, and part of our discussion in the future, those funds could be held back from future franchise fees that are collected and basically paid back over time? Or would that just be paid back $14,000 held out of?
I mean, there's no set process, and that's why we let flexibility for that to be done. So it's not something that's required to be paid back one lump sum. It could be monthly, it could be over the course of the year. There's no mandate to state when it has to be paid back by.
And all those funds would go back to the homeowner that was charged?
Well, I guess it'd be up to the city to determine how they would receive those corrections and all. So, at the end of the day, yeah, you don't want to collect from somebody. I mean, if somebody, we have the addresses and all of those that were affected, those that were impacted. So whatever way the city determines to handle those is something we can work together on. Answer your question?
If I may, that was one of the, that's why we requested the additional documentation, because all we have is a number of the properties affected and some monetary amounts. We don't know who has or has not been affected. We don't have those addresses. We don't have any of the documentation, which is what we just asked Gulf Power to provide to us just recently last week. So, given that, we are going to bring this back to council, and all the questions you're asking, we can address that and provide options, and then the council can make a decision from there.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yeah, one of them was a large apartment complex, so it's not like it's, sporadic throughout the city, so that was a big effect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. No further discussion on that item? We're good? And now we're at 4E? Nope.
I don't have any, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So, 6A. This comes under public hearing, second reading of ordinance 18-07-CC to repeal and replace section 4-47, administrative amendments to the Florida Building Code, and add technical amendments to the Florida Building Code.
Ordinance number 18-07-CC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida relating to administrative amendments to the Florida Building Code, amending Chapter 6, Article 2, Building Code of the City Code of Ordinances, providing for incorporation into the Code of Ordinances, providing a fiscal impact statement, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And we're here on second reading.
Good evening, Council. Sorry about that. The building official for the city. This is the second reading of Code Ordinance 1807-CC, proposed administrative technical amendments to the Florida Building Code. The proposed administrative amendments to the Building Code is in the form of repeal and replace, as this ordinance has not been updated or changed since inception in 2002. The Florida Building Code since has evolved over the past 15 years, and so The intent of these administrative amendments is to realign with the current Florida Building Code and also make the necessary changes to reflect our own code of government and enforcement of specific codes and rules to those codes, part of which is the Property Maintenance Code, which would be an extension to an already adopted Unsafe Building Abatement Code found in the LDC Article 20, and enforcement of in the same manner. The proposed technical amendments to the building code is in regard to flood elevation requirements and flood zones, and is also in the technical part of the flood ordinance that was adopted at last council meeting. The ordinance proposes the elevation be above minimum standards of the Florida Building Code, which is 1 foot, and would increase it to 2 feet for residential. Also proposes a limit on the size of enclosures below the base flood and providing for a declaration for non-conversion agreement. These amendments aid in increasing our points towards the city's community rating system, which the city participates in through FEMA in an effort to help decrease the flood insurance rates for our citizens located in the flood zone.
All right, so that's, do we have a motion?
What's the public hearing? We're going to open it up to the public.
All right, thank you, Mr. Destin. So, do we have anyone that would like to come to the podium and make comments on this second reading of ordinance 18-07-CC? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment.
Mayor, I move that the City Council approve ordinance 18-07-CC on second reading for final adoption and direct staff to forward to the Municipal Code Corporation for incorporation into the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Marlar. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. It is 6 yeas, 1 nay. Motion carries. Item number 7, we're done with that. Item number 7, consent agenda, no public comments.
So moved.
Second.
Adopt the consent agenda.
Any discussion? Votes unanimous, yes, so moved. Now time for comments, presentations from the mayor, council, land use attorney, city attorney. Do we have a particular order there?
Yeah, just go to Braden first.
All right, okay. I was going to mix it up, just keep everybody on their toes. I was going to let the staff talk first. Mr. Braden.
I don't have anything tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell, Councilwoman Ramswell.
Sorry to disappoint you, but I do have something. I noticed the other day, I don't normally go this way, but I traveled down Commons going east, and then I turned right on Kelly to get out to 98, and I was going to go left or eastbound on 98. And the road pattern had changed, and there's no longer a median. And I could not see any markings. This is bright daylight, and I pull, there's no one coming this way, so I pull out to what I think is going to be the median, and guess what? There's no median. So suddenly I'm blocking the westbound traffic. And that was really frightening to me because I know this area. I was sober. It's the middle of the day. And God forbid we get, tourists, people that aren't familiar with this area. It's night. It's whatever. It frightened me. I mean, honestly. And I'm told that's not the only intersection like that right now. And I would like to see if there's something that staff can maybe get in touch with FDOT or whomever is appropriate, because there needs to be some better marking, like there's no median or maybe even no left turn. I mean, I don't know, but that to me was very, very worrisome, and I'd hate to see another accident. We've already had a rash of a ton of extra accidents with this construction going on. So anything we can do to prevent something tragic happening, I'd like to see us try to do.
Where exactly? I missed your directions.
It's where Clelly Plantation hits 98 across from the dune buggy place or whatever it is over there.
Yeah, I think FDOT has been putting out public notices in the Destin log and the paper on traffic changes, but maybe we can, because that's partially city property on the other side, correct? Across from
I don't know if the
Foundation.
road is or not. I'm not sure how they.
So,
determine.
Carice, is there anything that we can do as a city to try to get that information out besides what FDOT's doing?
What I'll do is I'll have Mr. David Campbell tomorrow contact FDOT and get their take on that. We usually like to go through FDOT and put out their official information rather than, do something that may conflict with them, but I'll have Mr. Campbell contact them tomorrow regarding this issue.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, and that's all I have.
Mr. Dixon.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
You're my buddy. Mr. Overdeer. Thank you, sir. Mr. Dixon, Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have is, ha, 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 ha. The only thing I have, Mr. Dixon and I grew up together, so we have all kinds of fun. Though the only thing I have is, if you haven't been out to look at what's going on at Noriega Point, I suggest you go out and look. It's interesting, and they're just about done with part of Phase 1. It's fascinating. The tourists love to see how they pump sand out and make a mini geyser of sand as they're pumping in. The only thing that I would say is, and I'd already talked to the mayor about this, apparently the memo didn't get out to everyone about the pass being blocked this morning. We had a lot of frustrated local boat captains, and we also had a lot of frustrated tourists who couldn't even get their little pontoon boats over to Crab Island. But if you haven't had a chance to go out there and look at the progress on Noriega Point, please do, because it's amazing. And I get people asking me all the time, since I work out there on the water, why are they doing it? And I said, well, that's what it looked like before Hurricane Opal. And everybody goes, oh, it went that far. I said, yes, it did. So please, I urge you all to go out and look and see the progress and see where your tax dollars and grant money are going. Thank you. That's all I have.
Seeing how we're going down the list. The only comments I got is we tried to work with the dredge company on a couple of different issues where they could fuel up, and we thought we had that solved earlier in the week, and to come to find out that there was an attempt by the Okaloosa County, who's carrying the purse strings with the TDC on this dredging operation, apart from the restoration project. We were hoping we could use that dredge company to go out there and not only re-nourish the East Beach in front of Holiday Isle, but at the same time, our pass is extremely shallow and more dangerous than normal. And so we tried to work with them, and apparently they didn't want to play ball. And then the Corps of Engineers actually stepped in Thursday, I think it was, and said that this particular company has a contract with them in Apalachicola that's more, that they don't have any say-so in the process. They got to go and respond to the Corps. So the county commissioners are now going to have to hire another dredge company. And this is not good news for the Holiday Isle folks, especially if we can't get this done till fall. But they're going to have to hire another dredge company to do the beach renourishment and bring in a dredge that can also dredge a pass. Unfortunately, it probably is not going to take place this spring, and so we just got to hope for not a whole lot of storms for the folks on Holiday Isle, but at the same time, it's going to be a tough deal for the charter fleet and our recreational boat owners. So just an update on that.
Mayor, I don't have anything tonight.
Mr. Morgan.
My water at my restaurant was shut off on Friday night, and what normally would have been a terrible situation, it wasn't easy, but Destin water users and Lockwood Wernette were very wonderful to deal with. They were professional, fast, and it was a pleasure dealing with them, and they made a bad situation tolerable. So thank you to them.
Next.
Nothing, thank you.
Kind of piggyback on what Mayor Jarvis said, I did deal personally with the dredging company, and it's pretty accurate what Mayor Jarvis did indicate. The Corps of Engineers kind of stepped in at the last second and just kind of put the kibosh on the whole project, but it'd actually be helpful if anyone can show up to the Board of County Commissioners meeting tomorrow, either if you're from Holiday Isle out there listening right now, just if y'all can pack the room out, because like Mr. Jarvis said, there's an alternate plan underway to get another dredging company hired and get them over here. The reality is they've indicated it might be October before that can happen. And so there are some other efforts. I know our congressman is trying to work the back channels to force the company that pulled out to get over here, but right now there's nothing concrete. So it's looking like it's going to be October before they can dredge the pass and renourish Holiday Isle. But I understand, Councilmember Overdeer, are you going to the BOCC meeting tomorrow? So
That's the one that's up in Crestview.
so if anyone from Holiday Isle can join Mr. Overdeer up there, it always helps to have a lot of people out there just to let the county commission know that it is important to you. So that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, everyone. When I looked at this agenda, I didn't think we were going to get out of here till 11 o'clock at night, so I'm really excited. We're trying to make these meetings efficient so more and more people can participate in the civic process that still have to go to work in the morning or get the kids off to school. I'd like to thank the council and staff especially for helping this process. We're going to continue to look at ways to speed up the process, but still give everyone their opportunity to, not only for the council to have clear and concise discussion, but also to provide all the opportunity for the public to speak and share their thoughts and ideas. And that being said, this comes to our final item on the agenda, comments, concerns from the audience on any matters considered at the meeting tonight or on any matters not on the agenda. So if anyone would like to approach the podium, do so. Just don't everybody rush up at once. Please state your name and address, even though we know who you are.
Yes, Lee Moore, representing Howard Group. Just wanted to just let you all know and the public that recently Captain Payco of the Sheriff's Office was kind enough to forward an email to us that he received about an interesting, seems to be annual event that has begun at Crab Island on Memorial Day called Electric Island. I don't know if any of you are aware of it. Apparently last year was the first time it happened here. I think they have these all over the country and perhaps the world in different areas, but it's basically where they go out to an island or near an island and put a DJ on boats and have a big, huge party. And so there was a video now from last year's party or event that's being circulated advertising this year. And it was pointed out in the email that one of our tenants' pontoons were rented and used for this party. And so we just want to clarify that we spoke with our tenant about it. They told us they had no idea that that's what was happening with these pontoon boats. They were just rented from him by the organizer of the event. We made him aware of it, and so he committed to not rent to this organizer again. Now, we all know that, as you know, in business, you can't always completely control the end use of your product. So, you know, we're going to make every effort to make sure we don't support any type of activity like this, and if you see the video, you'll know what I'm talking about. In fact, we've been very outspoken about the fact that we feel that all commercial activity should be disallowed at Crab Island. This is one of a perfect example of a reason why. So in case anyone hears or sees that video and sees our tenant, their logoed boats being used in it, that was not intentional on ours certainly, and not our tenant's part. And hopefully there will be no further connection in any way. Believe me, if we are aware of it, we'll stop it if we absolutely and it all possibly can.
You mean it's not family friendly and wholesome out there?
I wouldn't call it family friendly and wholesome. Nowhere close. Thank you.
Mayor, excuse me. I would just like to make a comment and thank Ms. Moore and the Howard Group, and especially Ms. Moore. When this was brought to our attention, we shared it with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, and they contacted Ms. Moore of the Howard Group. Their action was immediate and very positive to help us get to the bottom of this, to make sure that if not stopping the event, that we did everything that we could to deter them from, using their rental customer from renting to it. So, Lee, I want to thank you guys. Thank you so much for your help.
Come on board.
Okay. Honorable Mayor and Councilors, I'm Guy Tadlock, and yes, Mayor, we certainly were disappointed to hear about the difficulties with the contract with the dredge company, but certainly understand that. And there's a handful of, I think, the condo managers and some of the owners are going to the BCC meeting tomorrow morning and participate in that. But one thing I would really be remiss if I didn't say this tonight. Certainly the city of Destin, they stepped up to the plate on this. They really did, and Commissioner Wines did as well. I think we're all disappointed, but one look when the dredge boat showed up a couple of weeks ago, and boy, it kind of looked a little bit scary on the side of the boat. The name of the company is Inland Dredging, and then the boat had about a foot of freeboard. So it didn't look real good, thinking about having good weather, and we've had some pretty rough seas lately. So anyhow, we'll get by it. It's not going to be a very pleasant period of time until we can, get some sand on our beaches, and I'm sure the pass has got some pretty shallow areas as well. But the city of Destin did a great job, Ms. Lejeune and Mr. Burns, all the work that you guys put into it, and we'll stay the course, and hopefully we'll get a dredge boat in here real soon. Thank you, sir.
Well, I just want to let you know that the city and the council and most of the commissioners, Okaloosa County commissioners, everybody's really motivated to make this happen. The funding's there. We just have to go through the arduous process with the Corps of Engineers and finding a dredge company and getting a thing. Unfortunately, like I said, it's just not going to, it's just not something we can knock out in 30 days, unfortunately, for the people on Holiday Isle.
Certainly understand. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Johnson.
No, Johnson, Gulf Power. As y'all are aware, tax reform has afforded us the opportunity to reduce our corporate taxes from 35% to 21% as well across the board. So effective April 1st, and this is not a chest pounder, but effective April 1st, or to the April Fool's Day, our rates are going down. So starting Saturday, there'll be a reduction across the board for residential, commercial, and industrial, averaging there about 10%. So just want to pass it on to council.
Bernard, you know the rate sheets we were talking about the differentials between 1,000 kilowatt hours and 2,500 kilowatt hours. Mm-hmm. Do y'all have a rate sheet that I can see? Could you send us that?
Yeah, we did.
So we can compare the different
kilowatts? See, in other utilities, that is our rates are going to be the same regardless of whether it's 1 kilowatt hour, 10 kilowatt hours, 1,000 kilowatt hours, or 1,500 kilowatt hours. There are utilities in South Florida that have a sliding scale. Okaloosa Gas has a sliding scale as well, so our rate's going to be the same across the board. It's just going to be
But y'all have different rates for residential and commercial.
Correct, for residential.
But for a commercial that uses 10,000 kilowatt hours is charged the same per kilowatt hour as
Right, so the demand rates
100,000.
and base rates and all that, but we can
Got
get
it.
that to you.
Great. Good
Sure.
job.
But they'll see a reduction as well, right?
Yeah,
Commercial.
it should be reflective on the May bills, so it's effective April 1st. All right? What's that?
Turn our air conditioning on and the bills
That's right.
jack up.
Well, no. So this goes all the way through 2018, and we'll continue on with another reduction in 2019 as well, so. All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Oh, this is the best part. I'd like to adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everyone.